There you go. Wonderful, wonderful guitars there, bringing us in to the latest version of Property Matters. Welcome, one and all. As usual, we have a stalwart of the game, Hamish McClay of Search Convey, and a friend of all the channels that we work on together, Michelle Carr, taking the con out of construction. Today, I'm just gonna do it, Hamish. Today we should announce the new channel that will be called, drum roll. Thank you. Construction Matters, new logo in the corner. There you go. You'll recognize that. So, which is why Michelle Carr fits into this so blooming well. She's taking the con out of construction, a podcast that we've been working on for a couple of months together. But more importantly, she is a QS, highly in demand to help people stopping diving headfirst into the crevasses that are often left when putting together a construction project. But before we get any further, Hamish, why are we doing Construction Matters?
Well, I feel it's a very important part. Well, it obviously is. Without the construction, without the build, we're not going to have property to sell. But of course, I work very much within the conveyancing sort of field of things. But we need the properties, and because it all works together. So all of us need to keep an eye who are involved with construction, to do anything to do with building within that sort of sector. We're all part of it, and therefore it's important we keep together. And I think that this is where if you like, if we're keeping together, if we're working together on it, and we're actually collaborating, it makes such a significant difference. We don't need to be the experts like Michelle does about her side of things. But it's interesting to know that side of what goes on, because she knows far, far better than I do about what the heck goes on a construction site, on a building site. She's used to visiting those. So basically, I mean, what we've decided to do, we will have these every 4 weeks. We'll have a Construction Matters, and we'll see from that particular side of the business how Michelle is sort of seeing things. Sometimes it will be very, very topical, but other times it will be aspects that Michelle's picked on her sort of travels and from her vast experience on such a wide range of aspects that she's involved with the building. And today, I thought it quite appropriate because an announcement has just been made that 600 million is going to be made available to basically advance the capabilities of our by training all of these people. And what we want to actually look at is that going to be an effective thing? Is it something which is basically it's in the news, it's something which needs to be done, so let's talk about it and not necessarily get round to it.
I remember previous governments having said similar sort of size sums, giving more property expertise, etc., etc. It all seems to go nowhere. Michelle, more money's been found down the side of the sofa, apparently, to help train property professionals. Thoughts?
A number of them, of course. I think, so back to your point about why is the government saying this, I think partially people have said all over the years, many people throughout my career in construction, is that you can tell what the economy's doing by the amount of cranes that you can see in the London skyline. It's probably the same with other cities, but obviously I spend most of my time in London. So when there's investment and when things are going great and the economy's doing well, you will see lots of cranes in the skyline in London. And it is true. You know, when things are picking up, all of a sudden there's more cranes everywhere, and it does make a difference. Now, the construction industry is massive in this country. It used to be at some point, it was, I think, the biggest GDP. Obviously, things are slightly different now, but it's got a massive impact. And there are a lot of people in this country that are voters that are in the construction industry. And it's a league of its own. It's its own way of thinking. And it absolutely shocks me how many people that I've been connecting with recently that have no clue how bad it can be in the construction industry, how awful it is, why companies go bust all the time. And a lot of the time it's not because there isn't skilled workforce out there. I think it's fine. One of the issues that we have had is, I remember when they changed the price of the university degrees, the amount of foreign internationals that we come in that get qualified and then they disappear back to their own countries. So there is especially in the QS role, there's not many decent QSs in this country. There are a lot of QSs that are very good at their job, and their job means making money for the contractors, not creating projects, not doing what they're supposed to be doing for the construction industry. There's a lot of QSs that will quite easily allow other contractors to go bust. So yeah, it's fine getting these skilled workers and putting investment into training into skilled labor, but what the industry really needs is people to be educated in how to work with contracts, how to do the paperwork side of things, how to make sure to understand the Construction Act that was built in order to stop subcontractors being ripped off and stop subcontractors being abused by main contractors. That's still happening. Even though the law came in 1996, things haven't really changed in the industry. And what really needs to be done is ways that they can empower and train business owners that ultimately, and especially subcontractors, that they were a sparky, they were a plumber, they were a dry liner, whatever it may be. They decided to do something a bit more, provide for their family, create a business. They've decided to become a contractor and built their business up, but they don't know about the law. They don't know how legal speak works. They don't know that it's on their side. They don't know how to read a contract. They don't know how to apply for a payment. And this is where the education gap is massive in the construction industry, and that's where investment needs to be.
There's 600 million come in. I wonder who decides how it's to be spent, where it could be spent the way you're describing. I'm under the impression that Rachel Reeves just wants to throw it out there and see what kind of net this catches.
I mean, 600 million is a lot of money, but not really if you think in comparison to the amount of people that there are. For example, I mean, if they're talking about apprenticeships, putting it into apprenticeship funding, I mean, the apprentices get treated really badly. There's so many, my daughter's 19, so many of her friends are in apprenticeships. Some are good and some are bad. Some companies use apprentices just for cheap labor because they can pay them £40 or £50 a day and charge them out for 200. That's what they do, but they're not actually getting any experience. So whether or not they're going to increase tax relief or something like that, so these apprentices actually get paid what they should be getting paid, I don't know. I mean, again, is it training for business owners? That's what's really needed. Is it funding? I mean, to be fair, one of the things that I feel destroy the construction industry is financing, because a lot of people, financiers, do not understand the construction industry. And when they're, I don't know whether it be invoice factoring or whatever it may be, that companies are getting financed, when all of a sudden the money stops, they pull the money. And that's the worst thing you can do to construction companies, because the money comes once you've completed the project. So there's a lot of misunderstanding on how construction works unless you're in it. And I think education internally, but I'm assuming they're talking about schools and colleges and apprenticeships. I don't know. It's not detailed, or it's just this is what we're going to do. Let's have a flash in the pan. Let's just put something out and make us look like we're incredible and we're going to do something for the country.
It does appear to be a flag waving exercise. Hamish, this podcast forms part of a group of podcasts that we've all put under the title Spilling the Proper Tea. And within that, there's going to be cladding matters, property matters, construction matters, property quorum, and Ipsa kind of magic. What is the goal for this podcast, really?
Well, I think it's been demonstrated. I think from what Michelle has just said, that is, we want to try and educate people and let them know about the construction industry, about the property industry, about the conveyancing side of it. All of these things are important for people to know and to understand. And when we get blanket, this is one of the challenges too, I think, with the government that we have, or any government, to be perfectly honest. We can't blame this single government because they're all doing the same. Just turning around and saying, we have £600 million available. And when we hear from Michelle that, hey, hang on, it's all very well having workers, but if the businesses are going bust all over the place, there's nowhere for them to work. There's also making the training. I know this from my background in teaching as well. You need to make that education of people meaningful. Otherwise, people just fall out of it. I mean, an interesting comparison one can make. By the time students get to the age of 15 or 16, half of them decided, school's a waste of time. We've got to turn up, so we'll turn up much of the time, but we don't take it that seriously. because it's not giving us what we need. So what they need to do is to, when they're actually working, when the training is going forward, this is just purely on the building site side of things, training them with their skills, whatever they're doing within the construction to support the bosses that they're working for, make them feel meaningful. People need to feel wanted. So the training has to go right for starters, because we want them to stay. We don't want a 20-25% dropout rate while they're pathway through, any more than we want the businesses to be actually sort of failing. So what we've got to do is it's basically sculpting what we've got to actually make sure that those business owners, and they're lovely, lovely people, so many of them are just lovely, lovely people, they just haven't got a bloody clue about business. And that can be such a damaging thing to them. There's a lot more than meets the eye to the whole of the industry. People think it just happens. It doesn't. There's so much work. And anybody that puts in, they've actually decided, I'll put in a bid to actually carry out this contract work. Sometimes they make errors. They need to know what they're doing effectively with that. There's training for that. How do we go about training them?
Well, Michelle, another shameless plug. Michelle has actually been working with me to put together an audio podcast called Taking the Con Out of Construction. And some of what the work we're doing there, Michelle, seems to be very much about getting people to get the right mindset together when they're doing these kind of projects.
Yeah, yes, that's true. It's about mindset and education and being empowered. But also, to what Hamish has said, one of the problems in the industry is not the skill of the workers themselves, especially I'm not talking about property as in doing work in your home or small property development. That can be a bit of an issue, but on main contracting sites and on big building sites, it's generally not the skills of the actual labor on site. They're normally pretty skilled, and in all honesty, these guys do things day in, day out. My husband's been on site for 20 years. He's an expert in what he does. Most people that work in building sites are experts in what they do. That's not the issue. The issue is corners have to get cut. And people are pushed with program. Coordination isn't happened on time. So you'll have, one thing that my husband complains about all the time is a duct worker. So there's a coordination that needs to be done, and him and the Sparkies and whatever, they all have a bit of a banter on site, and they're always taking the mick out of each other because there is an order, and then you go and try and put your grill in, and there's a piece of duct work in, and it happens all the time on site. Like, they're always arguing and fighting about who's going to go first, and it's a bit of a joke, but it's not funny. And ultimately, if things aren't organized properly, people aren't paid on time, things aren't done properly, there isn't enough budget, those kind of things, it's the management of these people that's a problem. So someone hasn't ordered materials on time, someone hasn't coordinated the teams on time, someone hasn't got paid, so they've pulled off site. There's all these other things, or they're pushing program, or they're trying to cut costs because the main contractor wants to make a bit 20% profit, and they're just crucifying. They haven't, or someone hasn't priced it properly in the first place. They've changed the design. There's so many things that come from the management level higher up that isn't done properly, that it's not the actual tradesperson on site that's causing the problem. Yes, there's always going to be situations where you're going to have people that aren't the best tradesmen, and there are accidents happen and people put things the wrong way around. But ultimately, if they're not being pushed and the budget is there and the time is there and things are coordinated properly and priced properly, none of these things would happen.
Isn't it worrying to me that there just don't seem to be, I don't know many QSs. I think I know one other. And I think there should be more of them.
Yeah, but there should be more of them. There are a lot of QSs. There's not a lot of good ones. Which is a problem.
First contentious statement for this channel. But you told me horror stories, Michelle, where you've gone on site and things that are supposed to be there, written in black and white, just aren't there, and it can be frankly dangerous. Because
I commented on a post on LinkedIn the other day, and this guy wrote back saying QSs are the bane of his existence, and how they've asked for kitchens to be delivered, and we're going to look at your final account and the corruptness of it. And I was just like, wow, like, I've heard of it happening, I've never seen it like that. I mean, I don't even, if someone wants to take me for a coffee, I get nervous about it. But again, I'm a woman, it's slightly different. But how some of these QSs are like, oh, fit a kitchen in my house, and then we'll talk about final account. And if you don't fit a kitchen in my house for free, then I'm not going to issue your final account. And it's just like, and I believe them. And there was loads and loads of comments about it. I believe it. It can be very corrupt. But also, there's not just the corruption side of it. There's also the incompetence side of it. And I've met a lot of incompetence about it too. And ultimately, people that are lazy and people don't do contracts properly. But the reason that I'm so hot on contracts is because you don't know how important they are until you try to rely on one. And then when you can't rely on it and you're in a big, tough situation, that's when you realize how important they are. So ultimately, that's why I always concentrate on getting decent contracts and understanding them too. But
it is the backstop, isn't it? You can wave that flag and say, this is the definition of what we're doing together. And if you don't follow that, then you're not sticking within the contract. Hamish, this is our inaugural session. Would you care to take us home?
Right, indeed. I think, as I constantly say on so many of the podcasts we have, I always pick up something new myself. And that's why it's great having somebody like Michelle along, because she can actually bring out aspects of what's actually going on in the industry as a total that we go nowhere near. However, it is important to see what happens on the building sites and why it can take time. It does need appropriate management. It does need that appropriate. It has to be. They don't call them property managers and project managers. What do they call them in the construction industry, Michelle?
Project managers, but the definition of a project manager, you could ask 20 people and they'd all give you a different definition.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and some of them would be quite rude words to describe
it.
But
I mean, funny enough, my father worked in the construction industry for a bit of the time. He worked more on the sort of sales side, but also he did do a bit of site management too. And it's what is so important. And having worked in the manufacturing industry, this is something I found out within engineering, particularly if you're looking at cars. You need things to arrive at the right time. It does need to be planned. And there's no point in saying, oh, I think I'll get those now. The whole plan does need to be worked out there. There's a lot of training that needs doing. And that is something very, very important. So it's all relative. And what it does mean, of course, we need to go into much sort of greater depth sort of in due course. But the key issue then is training and making people aware of what they need to do. And hopefully we will get to the point where we will have people listening from the construction industry and they'll think, oh, crikey, it would be worth my while tightening up on this. So I think, thanks indeed for Michelle's sort of input. It really is sort of magic having sort of somebody with her level of knowledge and experience to contribute, particularly to our first Construction Matters podcast.
Correct. I was going to say, much like the secret of comedy, the secret of construction appears to be the same, which is timing and getting things they actually arrive on time in the right order. No, I don't need the kitchen sink before we've dug the foundations. That's the sort of thing. But look, guys, and the great thing about Michelle is, and she and I think I can call her friend. In our friendship, she's been absolutely had no problems telling me that a spade is a mechanical digging implement. She will call things as they are, and that's why as a channel we will all benefit from this. So what I would say is, look out. There's plenty more stuff where this came from. Michelle, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule. And Hamish, another great channel I think we're putting together here. And to all of you listening, as usual, I say keep your feet on the ground, keep reaching for the stars. But for God's sake, get your things in the right order. Get your ducks in a row. Good Lord, man and ladies alike. Until next time we speak, look after that mental health. Goodbye.
Bye.